On today's episode, I have the founder of Yellowbird, Michael Zalle, joining us for a conversation on how to navigate COVID-19, how to keep consistent in building your company culture, and just general tips for being an entrepreneur and a business leader. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another one of our podcast episodes. Today, we have Michael Zalle joining us. He's actually the leader of an organization called Yellowbird. So, Michael, before we kick off today's conversation, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about who you are and some of the activities that you guys are working on within your business?
Sure. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate you having me on. I am the founder of Yellowbird. Yellowbird is a gig economy company. We're a environmental health and safety gig economy company, which is a market that most people touch every single day but don't realize that they touch until COVID-19 hits, and then you realize the importance of it. And I think we'll talk about that. My background, I'm from Southern California. I was a third generation Southern Californian. So my grandparents used to deliver milk across the farms of Los Angeles when those existed. I moved here about 2 years ago. I've been delighted by Arizona. I'm telling you, the people here are just absolutely wonderful. It's a wonderful place to live and go to business. I've got a wife of 20 years. I've got two great kids. One is going to be a sophomore at Brophy here in town, and the other one's going to be a sixth grader. She is at St. John. And I've been a tech entrepreneur or in the tech industry since I was 16 years old. So it's a long time now. It feels like yesterday, but it's been a while.
Absolutely. Well, I thought you would be a perfect individual to interview for our podcast in the sense that you align so well with a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders, and you certainly know what it takes to build a successful business. So diving into that a little bit, I think, what's top of mind for a lot of businesses right now is COVID-19 and how businesses have been disrupted due to this.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does that look like for you as a leader of a business?
We've been, I don't know if it was planned this way or if we were just fortunate. No, I do know it was not planned this way. We've been fortunate, to not be at full scale as a company during this process. There are organizations that raised a whole bunch of money and they built up their teams and they were, going and doing great. And COVID hit and it put their businesses into a screeching halt, and it was of no fault of their own. In our circumstance, we were scaling and we were doing well, but we were still very small, a 5-person organization at that point with a good revenue stream. And what I do in environmental health and safety, one of the main parts of that is industrial, or one of the parts of it, at least. I won't necessarily say main, but one of the parts of it is industrial hygiene, which nobody had heard of before COVID-19. And now every letter that you get from Nordstrom's or an airline or anything else say, we consulted our industrial hygienists. And so I've been blessed to be part of the tailwind of that industry. And we've actually designed our current programs around COVID-19 return to work, which has been very, very successful. We're working with universities right now across the country and businesses to do not just your, hand sanitizers and disinfectants, but really doing surface testing and doing HVAC testing and making sure that people are actually ready to return. So it's been good for our business.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot of organizations that probably didn't even know that you existed. So I think this is great that we can help get the word out about how you can help a lot of businesses with this process.
Yeah.
Kind of diving back into Yellowbird, how did you guys get started?
So my background is actually in communications, and my last 15, 20 years has been spent in satellite communications. So geostationary satellites orbiting around the world, around the globe. And the main driver behind satellite, where nobody really looks into it too deeply, is health and safety. If you are at a mine or on a construction site or at an oil and gas facility, and there is an outage in your comms lines and your communications, you can't call 911. You can't get people help if they get injured. And the number of injuries that happen every day, unfortunately, and it's just nature of volume of work being done with people that are doing manual labor, it's pretty high still. I mean, people do get injured, people get hurt, people get killed. It's a serious business. I try not to take it too seriously, being, we are a tech company and we do try and have a good time, but we do understand our personal why, as the Simon Sinek says, and that is to get people home safely every day. So I'd speak with people and they'd say, hey, who do you know that's I need somebody to be on this construction site for 3 months. Do you know anybody? We're a Phoenix-based construction company and we have a project going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so given that I supply people all over the country, I would help folks along those lines. And so in the back of an Uber one morning, I was being driven early. It was like 5:30 in the morning or something. It was early, going to Sky Harbor here in town. And the gentleman that was driving me was a former colonel in the Chilean Air Force. And I can't make this stuff up. And he was articulate and well-spoken. And I started chatting with him and he explained to me that he was bored when he retired. He came to Arizona to be with his grandchildren and his wife. And he was sitting on a couch. So he decided to drive an Uber. And I thought to myself, a man with this level of expertise and experience and knowledge is driving an Uber. And so it started making me ponder. And that's how Yellowbird was born.
I think some of the businesses are traditionally born that way. It's based on some conversations that you have, whether that's in the backseat of an Uber or in conversations with other executives. So I think it's a really inspiring story. So on that same front, I'm curious if there are individuals out there that are thinking about taking that leap of faith and starting their next business. What advice would you offer them?
I've done this several times. I've really been fortunate to be part of or leading founding organizations. I actually went through Coplex, which is a accelerator here in town, and they're a venture builder, as they like to call themselves. But essentially, what they do is they put you through the lean startup methodology, which is a very popular methodology in today's world. But what it makes you do is put a plan together that not just talks about what you think you can do, but why it's important, and then do these mini experiments that test your thesis. And so if you are, if you're trying to start a small business, and I'll be arbitrary and say, you want to make cupcakes, well, maybe what you do is you start making cupcakes and you start testing the market and you see how the response is at a small scale. And that is my best advice I can give anybody, is actually just start doing it as cost effectively as you can. Don't spend $500,000 trying to develop something to then determine whether or not it works. Try and figure out a way that you can get that feedback from the market early. They call it pivoting or whatever else you want to call it, how you need to change. But the reality is that just start and then listen and don't assume that you know better than anybody, because the reality is your customer is going to tell you if you're right. I mean, you may think you got the best cupcake in the world, but the reality is that the customer is going to be the one who says, oh my God, I have to buy more of these.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because it's so important for leaders and organizations to actually listen to their customers. You can't force feed your consumers to love everything about your products. And so has there been anything, like any tips that you would have along those lines about adapting or pivoting or making changes within your business along the way?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. It's not a question I get very often. I would say that the most important thing from my perspective is understanding the read between the lines. Read between the lines, because nobody wants to give you bad news. And so, asking the questions like, would you pay for this? And would you like to order some? And, and if they say no, like, oh, it's not for me right now, or it's not, I think it's great. It's good for somebody else, but our business doesn't need it. Ask the question, well, what could we do if you choose to pivot? Maybe it's just one person's opinion and that's okay. But if you're getting enough of that, ask the question, well, what could we do to make this product something that you would find valuable? And maybe you're not that far off. Maybe the answer is that there's plenty of cupcake groups around here, but man, we could sure use a bagel shop. You're still baking, you're still doing all that stuff, but there's not a bagel shop for 20 miles from here. And there's 5 cupcake places around the corner. So maybe that's your answer. But active listening, they teach that in every business course and pretty much life. Active listening, really try and not force feed your solution. Your solution doesn't matter. their need matters. And then hopefully it matches.
Another topic I wanted to bring up with you is mentoring, either being a mentor for individuals or being mentored by other leaders. And so I'm curious, how has that impacted you throughout your career on either side of it?
Oh, it's been instrumental. I have the greatest network of mentors in the world. In fact, I meet them daily. I'm actually, dealing with the VC community right now and raising money to grow the business. And, it's and fun experience, by the way, during COVID, going through that with a growing, scaling, profitable, or highly growing business. It's still hard to raise money. That being said, when I'm talking to VCs or I'm talking to various people, they become my mentors. Everybody that I talk with right now that are smart people, I seek my mentors. I really do. These are people who have done things that I haven't done, or have some kind of a tone. And I like to help people, and so I like to be a mentor to others. I've mentioned in other interviews, and I don't let this define me, but I was actually born with one hand. And so my disability, and I was born that way, I didn't lose it. So I'm not really a good mentor for somebody who was injured or lost a limb or in war or something like that. But for people who were born like me, I'm a good mentor for the parents and for the kids, because I can tell people what it was like to be me. And that helps me more than it helps them. It helps me feel like I'm contributing and giving back. And I think everybody who mentors gets that sense that it's almost an adrenaline rush when you're like, oh man, I really helped that person, or I really gave a little something that not anybody could give. And I think we all have that. We all have something to give. So
Throughout the course of our careers, we're continually learning and growing, both personally and professionally. And so I'm curious, what is your go-to resource? Are you a book reader, or do you read blogs or attend professional development events? What do you turn to?
So my co-founder, Michelle Tinsley, she's an Intel executive for 26 years and has joined me in the team. She is a visual learner, and it took actually about 6 months for her to finally tell me that, because I send podcasts to people constantly. I love podcasts, which is good because I'm on one with you right now. But I really do. I listen to them all the time. I always get a little bit of a tidbit from them. I can do it when I'm driving or walking or sitting by the pool or whatever I'm doing. So I'm an audio learner. So that's my way of learning. I also try to, and I say try, it's not easy. I try to read books because you can notate them and annotate them and so forth. But I'm not as good at reading books because I get distracted, or I don't have the dedicated time for it. You can do podcasts in 30 minutes sessions or an hour session. So.
Absolutely. It's nice when you can break it up into those little chunks. I know one of my strategies, I love to listen to that kind of content when I'm driving into the office, or when I was driving into the office, but now that's slightly changed. So,
Yes.
one thing I'd like to ask you, if you could go back and tell your younger self any advice, what advice would that be?
You're not as good as you think you are. I don't know. I think I overcompensated when I was early in my career. I was very young, and so I always, I watch what you asked for. I always aspired to have gray hair, and now I have it, and I'm like, wow, I really wanted this my whole life. I'm not sure if that's such a great thing, but I always aspired to be older, and so I acted older. I presented myself in a certain way, and maybe it was just, I can't say it served me poorly, so it worked out, but I also think I lost some opportunities because I was perceived as arrogant. And I hope I'm not perceived that way as much any longer. But when I was younger, I think I put up a false narrative, that I shouldn't have. But, live and learn, live and learn. What do you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of ties into self-awareness. And I feel like the older we get, we're a little bit more self-aware. Um, so I guess, as you've become more self-aware in a professional setting, how has that helped you to even find more success?
I think for me, it's that active listening piece. Am I paying attention? I used to be the ultimate multitasker, which is not a compliment. You don't want to do that. I actually get on people's cases in my group. when they multitask, when I can see that they're typing on their computer or doing something else on a Zoom. It's like, okay, are you with me? Come on, let's stay engaged here, right? That's one of those things that for me is important, because I want people to be all in and really contemplate and think. And I think the best ideas come from under the surface. You're talking about, I'll give you a good example. We were speaking with a law firm yesterday, and they were talking with us about professional experts so we have environmental health and safety experts all over the country. And so we can use a professional witness, or we can do a professional assessment or a review of documentation on demand. And so it's a really good application. And we were chatting about it. And during that discussion, I had asked, well, how often are you called just with people who don't know what they're doing? I got an OSHA letter. EPA sent me a form. I don't know what to do. And it's not really a high billing opportunity for them, but they want to serve their client. We'd be a good partner for them to do that. However, we weren't talking about that. And it was during that dialogue, when I was fully engaged with this discussion and really enjoying the chat, that came out. And so for me, I think that's what I try to have everybody do, is really use your noggin, be engaged, really, jump into it. Yeah, and you can't do that. You can't do that if you got Facebook running on the left-hand side, and you got TikTok over here, and your texts are going off in your pocket. You can't really be fully engaged.
Right. Being in the moment is crucial, I think. I know I found a lot of success through that. And you're right. When you can actively engage and participate in dialogue, it's amazing, what will come up in that conversation. So being proactive in that, I think, is really helpful.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to dive into too is company culture of organizations and businesses. We work so hard, especially on the leadership level, to do that on a regular basis. Now that we have employees and team members working from home, how do you try and keep that consistency or keep team members engaged?
We have a blast. I think it's been better than even before. Michelle, again, I mentioned my co-founder, and then I have another gentleman who's actually he is our cultural guru. His name is Chad Ortega Foster, and he actually runs our company culture, and he's always looking for ways of keeping it a living thing. So we have 5 cultural values, and I won't go through all of them, but a couple of them are things like be awesome, or keep it spicy, or be a lifelong learner. Because I am going through all of them, but
they're all good. So we may have to borrow some of those.
yeah, I'll tell you, they're really great. And so we've done a couple of things to keep it going. One of them Michelle came up with, which we had to scale back because it got out of control, which was called Spicy Monday. And Spicy Monday was a themed Monday. It was like a dress up party. And we all got on Zoom, and we had a competition where we did a Zoom poll at the end for who won, and they got to pick the next week. I pushed it back to once a month, and then I pulled it back into every 2 weeks now. But they are so fun. This week, which I won, by the way, go Mike.
Congrats.
Thank you, was outdoors. And, I showed up in a full camping and hunting gear. And I mean, we go all out. We had Sesame Street one time, and Michelle showed up as the Oscar the Grouch, who literally had the trash can on her head. And I mean, these pictures, which I do have, are absolutely hilarious. So it keeps it fun. That being said, we're not a frat house. We all know what our job is, and we do have our KPIs and our business metrics that we're a young company. We're tiny from the grand scheme of things. And so, when you're doing under $100,000 a month in revenue, which is for a small company like this, every deal counts. And so part of our culture is, understanding that it's fun and we're having a great time, but we have a mission and we've got to stay focused on that. So.
And kind of on that same front, I'm just curious, for your organization, how have you seen productivity? I mean, has your team been able to stay as productive as they were before now that they're working from home?
Yeah, we're really blessed because of our size and where we were in our stage of evolution and the maturity of our people. I could see it becoming very, very difficult in a larger organization if you had 1,000, 10,000 people, how it could be very, very challenging to keep everybody focused. And the other piece of the equation is what's productivity? Is it hours or is it delivery? And I think to a large degree that there's a lot of people that are being pleasantly surprised by the output of people versus the hours that they're working. I think it's actually showing the work-life balance equation can actually happen, because you can work really hard for short sprints and then maybe go out by the pool and have yourself a little sunshine for 30 minutes and come back inside, and the whole world didn't come to an end for the company. That's, I think we've been very fortunate. That being said, I'm on the other side of the equation. I think I'm constantly preaching to my people, and actually I'm the worst. So I can't, I think that I'm actually the guy who I should be talking to, which is stop working. You're home. I know you're home. I know you have a million things to do. You're drinking through a fire hose because that's what it's like in a startup. Take a break. Go and leave your phone and recharge. And honestly, I'm the worst of everybody. I've had to stop myself from sending emails at 5 a.m. in the morning and 11 o'clock at night and on the weekends, because it's so easy to do if you're excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, as I've talked to a lot of other executives throughout the Phoenix Metro, I think like the general consensus at first, we were all working way more than we used to when we started working from home, because there weren't those boundaries or parameters. We felt like, oh, we'll just keep working all night long. So we've had to come up with some rituals and routines and, new boundaries and strategies for ourselves. So when you aren't working a million miles per hour and building this awesome business, I'm curious, how do you rest and recover?
I love my pool. I really do. I spend a lot of time swimming with the kids, and we had both of our vacations canceled this summer. They were both great vacations that we had planned for quite a while. One was to Hawaii and one was to New York, and both of them got canned. So we got a puppy. So now we have two little dogs. One is 7 years old, and the other one is, I don't know how old Sunshine is, but she's weeks old, maybe 9 or 10 weeks old now. And so a lot of my time is rolling around on the ground with Sunshine and trying to keep her from stop barking at 5 a.m. in the morning, which is what I was doing this morning, playing with her so she can wake up the family. I do like to golf. I'm a marginal golfer, below average these days. I don't spend enough time doing it, and I'm not going to for quite a while. And then I do like to travel. I try to travel. I don't travel like a lot of people do, though. I enjoy it, but I don't get out enough to really do a lot of it. But I'm kind of a homebody. I like my family. I like my wife's family a lot as well. My family is great, and my wife's family is here in Phoenix, and they come over all the time when COVID's not around, and they're a lot of fun.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it's really nice to get an inside glimpse of, what it's like to be a business owner and founder, and how you can have it all and have a personal life and, run a successful business. As you may know, we run an organization called A to Z BizLink, and we produce a publication called Resources for Growth. In that
Mhm.
publication, we feature 100 individuals that can ultimately help businesses up for success. Though you're not featured in there this year, I think you definitely can serve and help businesses and serve as a resource. So for those listening, how could they potentially leverage or utilize you as a resource?
I would love to connect with anybody who feels that I can help them. I'm an open connector, and I'm happy to do it. Please bear with me because I am very, very busy, but it doesn't. I will try to respond to anybody who has an ask. That being said, I'm also somebody who tries to get pitched a lot. So if you have an ask, please just make sure that it has to do with how to develop yourself as a business leader and as an owner. Not necessarily to sell me something. I have a lot of that, and I wish I could buy from everybody. I really do. I'm a salesman at heart. I'm the guy who buys Girl Scout cookies from every Girl Scout that comes by, every Boy Scout that comes by, every sports team that comes by. My wife says I'm the biggest sucker on earth. That being said, I can't do that for your businesses, so I apologize in advance. You can reach me on LinkedIn. It's very easy. Michael.Zalle is my Zalle. Again, Zalle is the last name, Michael spelled normally. And our website is goyellowbird.com. And that's a great place to find any information on Yellowbird. We are saving people a ton of money. And honestly, we are saving lives and injury. It's amazing how getting somebody to come in and do a safety assessment, or if you have a small project and you say, look, I should probably have a safety manager on this site, you can have somebody very reasonably for a short duration. And you get the benefit of their seasoned expertise without having to pay them the ridiculous salary that some of these folks can and should justify if they're full-time. The only other way to reach me is through all of our Twitter and other handles, which they're all at Go Yellowbird, Go Yellowbird, spelled just as it sounds.
Well, I think now more than ever is a perfect time to, connect with you and your business, in the sense that a lot of businesses just didn't have those plans in place. And then once COVID-19 hit, I think we realized, well, maybe it's time we put one of those together. So Michael's a phenomenal leader. I think he's just a great person for everybody to get to know here in the business community. So Michael, appreciate you sharing a little bit more about who you are and your journey as a business owner, and wishing you continued success with your business.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.